Our next speaker is responsible for Agile, Scrum, and Kanban methods at Big Red Button Entertainment, including the custom tracking tools used for project management. He has additional experience as an Agile development consultant to Dell and has produced several iOS apps. Here to talk about production methodologies and tools for small studios is Justin Leader.
Thank you. Is this working? Can you hear me? Great. All right, so see if this works. Okay, so, all right. Thanks for coming. You saw the title, you heard it once. So I'll give you a quick rundown on who I am. I do a lot of project management. I'm the producer at Big Red Button Entertainment. We're working on an unannounced console project. I'm also a consultant to, I've also been a consultant to enterprise level technology firms, including Dell, which makes a lot of systems for deployment of tens of thousands of computers at once for large banks and things like that. Travelport is an e-commerce solution provider for the global travel industry. They do a lot of the back end when you pay $100 to upgrade to get 3 extra inches on your airplane ride. So I've worked a lot with remote teams. I've also worked a lot with large teams and small teams. I've worked with large teams at small companies working on one project, and I've worked a lot with small teams at huge companies with divisions that have 500 developers, and each team works differently and trying to find a way to come together. The agenda for today, we have very little time. I'm kind of going to do a quick 101 overview of some of the production methodology I think really helps small studios. We're going to talk about the problems. We're going to briefly talk about the underlying causes of those problems. We're going to talk about solutions that have immediate benefits. We're going to talk about next steps. If one of these is an attractive solution to you, how you can then go about learning enough to start implementing it. And I think we'll have enough time for a few questions. So a few of the things I want to hit, time permitting. Missed deadlines. It's a big thing. Finding the fun and organizing for quality. Bottlenecks. Individual morale and productivity. So here's my caution slide. These are real processes. These are big things that you can implement. Some of you will know some of them, some of you won't. Please think them through. You have to invest in them before you roll them out. I always recommend you start with a pilot program, even if you're 12 people or if you're a team of 20 people. Always start small. Every change, I think you need to show everyone in the team short-term, immediate benefits, even if they're small, even if they're relatively insignificant compared to what you're hoping to get 6 months, 2 years down the line. And this is what I think is really powerful. When you show success in a subset of an organization that maybe has been in long, dire need of better production methods, you're going to be surprised of the kind of people that come up to you and say, when are we going to get to do this? When are we going to get to use those charts and use that web tracking software, that kind of thing. So get different kinds of people to ask you to roll out changes faster. That's a real win condition, and that's when you're going to get buy-in. You're going to get trust. The process is going to get trust. The possibility of improvement is going to get trust. In general, how to teach these types of things. For big things like theory, and some of the things that I'm going to be mentioning are theory, right? Group lectures with interactive work, talking and then doing and talking and doing in groups, that works great. But when you have tools, when you have actual intricate processes, you have to be committed to spend the time to sit down with everyone. I'd say you personally could do 10 or 20 people. You need assistance if there's more people to roll this out. You need to sit with them and work with them once or twice and walk them through the process and answer individual questions. So where does it hurt? So if we can idealize some of the problems with software development and in specific game development, we've got technology and requirements. So there on the left, at the corner is technology that's close to certain, right? There's not a lot of things that are going to change. We know how to build this. And requirements that are close to an agreement. We all know the kind of game we want to make, or we all know the improvements on the game we want to make. And then we have things that are far from certain, technologies that haven't been built before. You know, we're going to make something for Google Glass, right? We're going to do something that hasn't been done before. Or we want to make a type of game or a requirement that has never been made before. Or we want to make something fun that's always been awful, right? Those are the types of things that are more difficult. Now here, over there in simple, right? You might not be here if you're working in simple, right? You're not looking to learn anything. You're probably relaxing if you're working on something simple. Then it gets more complicated, right? When you have things that are maybe they're still in agreement on the technology or certain technology, but we don't know exactly what we're going to build. And then on the far end of the spectrum is anarchy, right? This is where you don't want to be, or where if you are, I'm not sure I can help you, right? So we want to look at this area, complexity and complicated, where maybe both of these spectrums are difficult, and both or one of them are very difficult. This is adapted from a great book on agile development for the entire software industry that I recommend, and the name's up there. I'm gonna give you a few names and websites or things to search if these are the kinds of things you want to think about implementing. This is about 20 minutes is about 2% of the time you need to kind of invest in this. And this chart from this software book, I like for us to put fun here. Fun makes everything much more difficult, because not only do we have the requirements and the agreements and a publisher or a platform, right, but we have this art form of fun on top of it. And that makes it everything exponentially more uncertain and unknown. So we've kind of defined a little bit of the problems that I'm going to be talking about. So, just looking back, right? How do we get to quality? Or how do we know we have a problem with how we build for quality? We look back and we think, oh, our pre-production time was not used well. Our scope creep was unstoppable. We built 6 games instead of 1. We had a lack of focus. I didn't need to list too many things. There's tons of problems with this. What addresses this, and kind of the main chunk of the solutions I'm going to talk about are a method for development. The method is Agile. Agile is a set of principles and philosophies developed in the late 80s for software development. And it speaks to quality. It speaks to quality in uncertainty, and how to harness uncertainty and know that it's coming, and how to push against it and with it and build something. Now, there are several different popular ways to become agile, and agile itself is not a process. The process that's most popular now, and certainly by far the most popular in games, is Scrum. Scrum, you've heard, I'm sure, is a set of processes and procedures and guidelines and steps to get to that agile state. And then we have the tool. And I talk about Jira. Jira is a software package, runs in the browser. It's a project tracking, end-to-end collaborative system. So we've got Agile. Agile's the philosophy. Scrum is the how. Agile is the why. And then Jira for me is the how, the way to implement. You can use other software products, but you can't learn this without doing it. And really, to do it nowadays, you need a software product. So I like to go right in that middle spot there. If you want to roll this out and you want to teach this, having all of this all in one is really important. So talk a little bit about let me bring something up over here. So to talk a little bit about what Agile brings to your company and how it can improve. We want to be able to accept uncertainty. We want to be able to adapt to change. So have you ever heard the expression, every boxer has a plan until he gets hit? Well, I feel like that, kind of like 5 minutes after walking in to the office every day. And that's okay, right? But because that's what software development is. That's why it's difficult and why people are great, or some companies are great and some companies are not yet great at it. And I know some of you have that feeling as well. And the question with how we develop and how we produce is, are we building and are we organizing in a way that anticipates that change is going to happen every day, and we don't know where we're going to be later. Agile also speaks directly to the value that we put into the product and the value that we deliver to the user. Now, for all of us, the value is probably going to be measured in fun. And that's how we're going to measure our success throughout production. And we want to know, as a business, we want to know how to most efficiently deliver value with the least cost. And every day we want to have a focus on that. So we can do that and build really great quality if we're focused and producing in the right way. And another aspect of Agile is that it separates the planning. It lets the business define the goals. That means a publisher, or that means the creative lead, or the owner of the company, or the product owner. They define what and why we're going to build. We're going to build something that's a match 3. We're going to build this. We're going to build that. And this is why, because this is what's making the most money. This is what's going to get Apple's attention, right? That's separate from the development team. The development team harnesses the how, right? You've hired these knowledge workers, these people that you give them the tools to go into a Ford plant. This is a great example I heard once. You give these coders the tools to build like a Camry, and you're really hoping that at the end of the day they come out with like a Ferrari, right? So how do you do that? How do you let them free? You got to let them be the planners and let them take total ownership of how things are being built. So another great book. This is the first read, I think, for Agile and Scrum for the game industry. Agile Game Development with Scrum by Clinton Keith. This is a graph. This is idealized. I don't think I can point very well here, but this is an idealized version of the difference between waterfall, or kind of standard project management, milestone by milestone, where right at the start they're both similar. The gray is the standard waterfall, and there's an initial rush to fun, right? There's a vertical slice or a prototype, and then there's a lot of work being done. And we're not really measuring for fun in that standard project management. We're tracking along a plan. We're tracking along to ship. And then you polish at the end and you get this big burst of fun. With Agile, one of the things that we can do is we can decide that fun is our metric, and fun is the thing that we want to progress, not time, not progress towards shipment. And so you get to fun quicker. And obviously, nothing ever is going to look like this. Nothing's going to be that smooth or that successful, but that's what you're trying to achieve. So how does Agile do this? So traditional waterfall, right, has milestone, ship, right? That's a success, right, in terms of traditional engineering management, right? But what's different in Agile is that, right, that's the baseline. And what in your mind we want you to think about here is you have iterations, and instead of going to that thing that we planned on, we planned to go to that same place, to go to the goal. But as we worked, we found, oh, that wasn't so good. That was, 4.2 on the App Store review. And this is 4.8, that new goal, right? Obviously 4 feet on the screen is worth, hundreds of millions of dollars on the App Store maybe. So how do we build in a way that can get us to that new goal? If you're lucky, maybe you were able to reorient things in that traditional model and redo the entire schedule and halt production. But when you have a system that's meant to do that, you can actually count on being able to do that and plan on doing that. Plan on heading towards one goal and finding any better goal that's adjacent. Now, how does Agile do that, right? How do you reorient? Those little stars, right, in between the iterations are feedback loops. Each iteration is a feedback loop. I'm sure you've heard sprints, right? Each iteration is a feedback loop for the previous work. And that's where you reorient. And you can also do this in traditional engineering, but it screws with the schedule. Agile is built in a way that lets you do this. So hopefully we find a better goal. Or we find out there was no way we were going to get to the original one. So talking a little bit, we mentioned planning for and meeting a schedule. If deadlines are something that you always struggle with, and no one doesn't struggle with them, but if you want to get better at them, Agile can speak directly to that. So bottom-up planning and commitment. So I mentioned earlier that bottom-up planning is different in Agile. It takes the prioritization, say the game designer stack ranks everything that's important and says, okay, these are the things that are really important to me. So he'll stack rank them, and then the team says, well, we can do this one and this one. We can't do that one until this one's done. And in our 2-week sprint, we can only do this much. And they'll do that much. They'll commit to being able to do that much. And this is one of the things that you can get immediate benefits of. If you, hands off, you say, how much can you do? And they say, we'll do this. And then you promise them, we're not going to interfere and you have to get it done. They will drive harder. You won't have to provide nearly as much external pressure. Disambiguation of goals. There's a lot of parts of Agile and Scrum that help you define things that need to get done. I'm sure you've asked someone to do something in your personal life, in your professional life. Hey, can you go do that? Can you go do X? And then the next day they come back with X. Hey, but it's Y. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's what I asked for, but that's totally not what I meant, right? And I guess you didn't know, and I should have explained better. There are a lot of tools within Agile Scrum that know what our failings are as human beings and as communicators. And if you go through the steps, it takes out a lot of the ambiguity and takes out a lot of the rework and helps. And one of the reasons why productivity is so much better. Estimation. We know humans are awful at estimating. I didn't realize how much time I had left until that sign went up. So the way that you estimate inside of Agile is through relative estimation, not absolute estimation. I'm not going to say that I have 5 minutes left. I'm going to say I have about like a quarter of my time left. Or maybe, maybe that's not a great thing, but a great example. Maybe, you know how hard that was that we did last week? Well, this is going to be twice as hard. That's how you estimate in Agile, basically. I talked about planning. So results, morale. When I introduced this to about 14, 15 people a couple years ago, I heard from a surfer concept artist. Wow. And he was like, he was very experienced in the industry, been all over. I've never known what anyone else has done in is doing in a company. I've never known what people are doing. Being able to know what people are doing and being able to know what's up next, that's a pretty low bar. But you'll be surprised at how much improvement you can get with this, just in morale. Productivity improvements. Okay, look at these numbers. In a Yahoo study implementing Agile and Scrum inside of a bunch of development teams, the average team got 35%. That's the people that's even the average, they didn't really care, and they got 35%. Some teams that the study called properly coached got 1 to 2 times, 100%, 200% faster. I think people can expect 100% more efficiency over 6 to 18 months for teams. Now there's teams that get to 400%. They call it hyperproductive or hypervelocity. And those are the Olympians that were good in the first place, but with a great tool, they get even better. If you have a team of star coders, a team that's been building something awesome but is totally disorganized, you can get so much more out of them if you give them the right tools. Don't expect everyone to get that good. So next steps here, I mentioned that book, the name's right there. There are a couple of different groups nationally and globally that do Scrum Master certifications. It's a few days of class, it's a test, it's actually quite good. If you want to roll this out, you've got to at least read the book, find a consultant, get someone to do that. Jira. We don't have a lot of time for Jira, but this is a burn down chart. This is going to show you the abilities for the things that you're going to be able to see when you track this process well. This is a 2-week sprint, and it shows you, are we going to make it on time? They made it in, well, a little early. This is a burn-up chart. A burn-up chart shows you, well, at this rate, you know, that was a sprint, the burn down. Over the course of maybe 10 sprints, if we're going at this pace, and this is all the work we've already estimated, are we going to finish? No, we're going to finish 3 weeks late, plus or minus 10% there. So, do we have time for questions? I got that 1 minute.
You've actually got a little more time.
All right, so I've got more slides, so we'll go do a few more slides and then we'll do some questions. So, key leads blocking the work of others, not because they're awful, but because they're the leads, right? Jira and Scrum give us some tools that I really like to help out the leads that don't have time. So, right, this is reviewing work, for example, but there's a ton of different uses for this. So, being able to put into place a process where you don't have a ton of producers running around being able to be everyone's secretary. Having a process that people can hand stuff off in the system to people that need to review something, or if they're being blocked, and being able to track that. Possible solutions. So Kanban is a sister of Scrum. It doesn't have sprints essentially, but let me show you. Let's see if this video works. So this is a little video of me moving stuff around in Jira. So that first column is to do. It's stuff that's not done. Each of those rectangles are issues, are tasks, right? Stuff in that second column, progress, in progress, stuff that the team is working on during the sprint. And then the third column are things that need to be reviewed by the lead designer. And at some point, if this is actually playing, doesn't look like it is, you can drag, the lead designer can go in and see, right, those things need to be moved over. Oh, very nice. So he'll say, okay, this one's done, I like it. But the next one, you know, I just reviewed it and it's not good enough, we're gonna send that back. These are the kind of collaboration tools that you need when you're dealing with thousands of these types of issues, you know, every couple of months. So another solution for management in a lot of small mobile startups and games there's no one who wants to be a manager, no one who's gone to management school. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. The manager direct report, right? That's a big corporate term, but having one person have a relationship with every employee, or have every employee have a relationship with their manager, have one-on-ones with immediate feedback coaching. I've implemented this several times. Solutions from managertools.com. It's a great educational resource. I've trained leads of departments, and I've done one-on-ones with the leads, and then the leads will go and do one-on-ones with the seniors, and the seniors will do it with the junior. We'll do one-on-ones with juniors, and it will help with morale. It will help with retention. It will increase each person's effectiveness. It will allow you to identify problems months earlier than you would have, and in time to solve them. That's a really great ability for production to say that we kept a bunch of crises from happening. We'll skip through. Yeah, do you want to do some questions?
If you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone to you.
We found that Scrum and Agile works really well for programmers, but not so much for artists. Are we doing something wrong?
You know, that's a great question, something I wasn't able to leave in. The question was, it works great for programmers, but not for artists. And then there's the question of, well, are we working in cross-functional teams, right? Are there artists with the programmers? That's a separate question, but related. But I've had an environment art team that they were working, and their tasks kind of were like, a gas. They expanded to whatever time you gave them. And in general, when you use Scrum and you use sprints, and one of the things you want to target are things that are unknown. Things that we don't know how they're going to turn out. So let's get a sprint done and get that feedback right away, and then we can reorient that arrow, right? That's for the unknown. Now, environment art, not usually very unknown. Art in general, not very unknown, usually a process that you can predict. But I found everyone loves that feeling of, I've committed to this 2 weeks of work, and I'm not going to be bothered, right? I'm going to get this amount of work done. We're going to be a team, and we're committing. I found that work was much more effective that way. It has to work with the system, right? Things need to come in, their work needs to be known at the start of the sprint. They can't have too many external dependencies. It would depend on the way you implemented it and how you explained it. There are a lot of choices, and one of the parts of Agile that I didn't mention in Scrum is that at the end of each sprint, you can change how you did it and the process. It's called the Sprint Retrospective, and you talk about what did we like doing, what did we not like doing, what are we going to change?
Other questions?
I've tried to teach Scrum to various teams, and one of the biggest challenges I have is getting them to understand user stories or defining their tasks in a way that done is defined.
Right. So user stories are part of Scrum in that it's one of those disambiguation tools. So a user story is kind of a vision of how you want the universe to look after it's done. Right. So Grand Theft Auto. I want to be able to be. And you start with there's a syntax. So as a player, I want to be able to get away from the cops so that I can go blow up some more stuff. That's not a great user story, but what it shows you is who's the actor, who's the person the value is going to. So that's one disambiguation. Sometimes it's the engineering team or an API team, right? And then the situation, right, is I want to be able to get away from the cops. So that's a feature. And then there's the so that, and that's and that's so that the developer, the person taking that story, or even the person who wrote it originally, knows why, and everyone agrees that it's because I want to feel like a badass, right? Or because I want to go do something else, or because this. So you don't get someone fulfilling that first part, but it doesn't work because it's not making me feel like a badass. It's a pillar. It's a tiny little mini pillar of the game for that little feature. Writing user stories, it's hard to convince people to do that. It seems very kind of floofy and amorphous. But you need to show them immediate benefits to doing that. And they'll do it, and if they do it during a sprint, they'll see that it was useful, usually.
Thank you. I don't think we'll have time for any more, but please thank Justin for the presentation. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.